Today, Ryzen 7000 gets a fix. Don't buy Intel's Arc GPUs until you watch this. Intel talks their next-gen Battlemage GPUs, and Nvidia's RTX 4090 and 4080 get insane clocks, along with third-party benchmarks. Welcome everyone to Gamer Meld. First up for today, we all know that AMD's Ryzen 7000 CPUs have a pretty odd heat spreader. There's quite a few gaps along the sides that definitely seem like they're gonna cause issues with thermal paste. Now, I personally haven't had any problems, but if you're concerned about it, the well-known cooler company Noctua just released the NA-TPG-1, a thermal paste guard for AMD's AM5 platform. As you can see, it hugs the sides of the heat spreader, preventing thermal paste from going down the side. Now, I will say personally, I don't really think this is necessary unless it's a conductive paste like liquid metal and you apply way too much, you should be fine. Noctua mentions that it can be challenging to clean off, but really if you don't apply too much, you should be fine. And even then, wiping it off shouldn't be that hard as long as you use some alcohol. Still, for anyone worried about it, Noctua has the answer. Next up for today, Intel's Arc GPUs are finally here, and if you saw my recent video that details some of the reviews, you know that they're actually not bad. But if you were thinking about picking one up yourself, there's one thing you've got to make sure your PC supports before you do anything. But before I get to that, I've got quite possibly the biggest PC hardware deal in years, and it's only going to be available for this weekend. It's at Micro Center, to which they did sponsor this video, but it's such a big deal that I'd probably discuss it anyway. So what am I talking about? Well, with the purchase of a Ryzen 7 or Ryzen 9 7000 series CPU, you'll get a free kit of 32GB DDR5 memory. And it's not from some unknown brand either. It's G.Skill 5600 Expo memory, which is perfect for a new Ryzen 7000 build. Now, it's an in-store only offer, but if you've never been to Micro Center, it's like a dream come true. It's where I got the parts for my first PC build. Think of it as a real store that has everything you could want for a PC build. So don't wait and visit the store that has it all for this great deal this weekend. Now back to what you need with Arc, and that's resizable bar. In a new story from Tech Power Up, they detail the type of performance loss you can expect if you don't have it. And let's just say it's big. As you can see here, in an average of multiple games, you lose nearly 25% performance when going from resizable bar enabled to it being turned off. Meaning if your PC doesn't support resizable bar, it's flat not worth it, regardless of the numbers you saw in reviews. And don't get me wrong, Intel themselves say this, but plenty of people may not know that to be the case. As far as whether your computer supports it or not, there's quite a few things required before you can turn it on, like booting in UEFI mode instead of legacy, 64-bit operating system, your boot drive uses a GPT partition, etc. Luckily, you can actually check if resizable bar is turned on by using GPU-Z. Just install the free software and click the resizable bar field in the menu. What's great is that it not only tells you if resizable bar is enabled, but it also tells you what you're missing to enable it. So it's not exactly hard to check, but it's extremely important you do before picking up one of Intel's newest GPUs. Next up, as Intel wraps up their first generation of GPUs, the company is already beginning to talk their next-gen Battlemage. In a new roundtable discussion with Intel's head of graphics, Raja Kaduri discusses a couple interesting things. For one, he confirms that most of the silicon team and even some of the software team are working on Battlemage, and it's apparently going really well. In fact, Raja is asked about how well Battlemage is coming along, and he says this.
Yeah, now that we are into the second generation and all, right, for first generation, they weren't a good reference point for you to compare. So now that you have a reference point, we do have comparisons. Like we track, the number of open bugs, for example, right? And when we start a project, we set some performance goals, right? So that it needs to be, hit this performance. And we do pre-silicon verification of
emulation, things like that. Yeah.
So when we look at those, all of those vectors, it's substantially better than at this point of time than where Alchemist was around.
Basically, now that Alchemist is done, Intel is a reference point to look at with Battlemage, and it's apparently coming along significantly better than Alchemist was at the same time frame, meaning if they aren't just blowing smoke, Intel's next generation of GPUs likely won't have the same issues with launch that we saw with their current gen. Of course, time, as always, will tell. And lastly for today, Nvidia's newest RTX 4000 cards come with some of the highest clocks we've ever seen. Nvidia themselves have already shown off the 4090 with clocks reaching an unreal 2.85 GHz. But apparently they can do a lot more. In a new post on Bilibili, a user shared screenshots of some benchmarks, one of which got to a whopping 3 GHz during a stress test. Now it was apparently using a water chiller, so it likely won't do this on air, but that's still seriously impressive. Not only that, but in another test, it actually got to an unreal 615 watts, meaning this was likely an AIB card given the Founders Edition supposedly has a limit of 600 watts. Still, that's a massive power draw and definitely one of the downsides. But the news doesn't stop there. A user on the ChipL forums shared some benchmarks of what they claim is a 16GB RTX 4080, and the AIDA64 screenshot definitely seems to indicate that. Either way, he was also able to get the 4080 up to 3 GHz, and this time we actually got some benchmarks. For starters, we have a TimeSpy score of 28,929, which is around 33% faster than the 3090 Ti, and around 64% faster than the regular 3080. Next are some different benchmarks from the same user, though I think the first one was overclocked while these may not be. First is Firestrike Ultra, which was only 24% faster than the 3090 Ti. Then there's TimeSpy Extreme, which is 30% faster. And finally, we have Port Royal, which sees the 16GB 4080 just 18% faster than the 3090 Ti and 45% faster than the 12GB 3080. All in all, Nvidia's next-gen GPUs are quite impressive, but they don't seem to be looking as good as Nvidia made them seem, at least when DLSS 3.0 isn't being used. Of course, as always, I suggest waiting for the reviews. So while that does it for today, are you excited for Nvidia's next-gen GPUs? Or are you more pumped for Intel's next-gen cards? Let me know down in the comments below. And don't forget to check out that awesome deal at Micro Center. And as always, have a great day.